Actually, you should probably introduce yourself because I'm not sure I'm going to come across on the spotlight.
Oh, okay. Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us this day to talk about your immune system, which I am totally passionate about. But first, a word about myself and where I'm coming from. I've been a clinical nutritionist for 30 years, and I love to dig into the literature and learn the newest and best approaches to helping people become healthy, the healthiest they've ever been. That's what we do at Bowel Associates. So without further ado, I would like to dive into a discussion of the immune system. And the first thing I want to say about that is that is the key when it comes to not only staying healthy, but staying healthy when it comes to pathogens. And of course, we're all concerned about this virus that's out there, part of the pandemic. And the goal today is to give you some practical, actionable tips, which you can apply as soon as we finish this webinar to help you get stronger, because you have that power. So as we're talking today, sort of be aware of what jumps out at you and then make a decision to add 2 or 3 or more items that we discussed this morning. So Annie, if you could put up the first diagram. I'd like to just briefly talk about what the immune system is and what it does. You can see there are several places in our body where these special cells that are part of the immune system are manufactured and then delivered. So the spleen and the thymus are part of the manufacturing factory, so to speak, of these special cells that protect us. And then those cells are delivered through the lymph and the blood and other avenues in the blood, in the body, to apprehend pathogens that we are exposed to every single day. And most of the time, you don't even realize that your immune system has fought off some kind of nasty infection. Let's face it, we live in a sea of germs that are always there. And I'm sure that you've heard the studies about how healthy it is to let your children play with animals and to play in the dirt so that their immune system becomes acquainted and able to fight off a wide variety of these organisms. And then, of course, we have to remember that we have trillions of cells inside of our bodies, which are bacteria and yeast, and sometimes even viruses that have a legitimate purpose there. So the bottom line is that our immune systems are good at fighting off pathogens if the immune system is well supported and healthy. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And let's move right into the top protective supplements based on the research. So I put vitamin D at the top because although vitamin D doesn't actually kill viruses, it's not an antimicrobial, it strengthens the immune system. And more than half of the population has genetic mutations whereby they cannot store vitamin D, even if you get exposed to it through diet or through sunshine. First, if somebody out there doesn't have their microphone muted, so could you please do that? So vitamin D is difficult to build in adequate quantities if you're living south of the Mason-Dixon line, which is roughly the Maryland-Virginia border. And
Monica is muted.
okay. All right. Can everybody hear me now?
Hi.
Yes.
All
Yes,
right.
I apologize. I was muting everyone to get the background noise off, and I muted you accidentally.
Okay, so where did I leave off?
I think you were talking about vitamin D.
Right. What part of it? Okay, I'll
Just
just
start-
quickly repeat the
Great.
the main point. So vitamin D right now is super important because it is a very strong immune supporting nutrient. It's actually considered a prohormone, not so much a vitamin. So we're looking for a good 50 to 60 nanograms per milliliter on blood work. And this usually requires 2,000 to 5,000 international units per day for people who are able to store it, or at least partly store it. At least half the population has genetic mutations whereby it's difficult for them to store vitamin D. And that's why you have people showing up with these super low vitamin Ds when they get tested. We do have very inexpensive vitamin D testing kits in the office if you're having a hard time finding somebody who'll check your vitamin D status. And that is one of my top recommendations for how to stay healthy, how to have a strong immune system.
Monica,
Yes.
that kit, do we have to go to the hospital to get blood work, and would they do that right now? Or is it something that they can tell through our saliva or something?
Well, the tests we have in the office are at-home blood spot kits.
Okay, great. Then yes, I will maybe order.
Okay, so save your question till the end, okay?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was late. I lost track of time.
That's
Yes.
okay.
Please put your questions in the chat,
Okay,
and
good.
then we'll do them at the end.
Great.
So my very top recommendation, and the one that is well borne out by research related to this virus specifically, as well as in general, is the use of vitamin C. So vitamin C, when it's in food form, used for prevention in relatively low doses, and I consider those like 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams a day, is really great for prevention of any kind of really illness. But in high doses, it is actually an antiviral and can be considered a drug. So just recently, based on the research that came out of Shanghai in particular, the entire hospital chain owned by Northwell Health, which is Long Island and New York City, about 23 hospitals, is using high-dose vitamin C as treatment or an adjunct to treatment for coronavirus patients. So the doses they're using are 1,500 milligrams administered 4 times a day by IV. So what I have been telling all my clients is to use at least 2,000 milligrams per day for adults. And the best way to do it, if you can, is to divide it into at least 2 or 3 doses throughout the day, because vitamin C is water soluble. So whatever you don't use right away will get excreted. If you want to really optimize your chances of improving your immune health, you can take vitamin C to bowel tolerance. And what I mean by that is as much as will cause diarrhea, which tells us that your cells are completely saturated with vitamin C. It's kind of an interesting experiment to do that when you're feeling ill as opposed to when you're doing well, because you'll see a big contrast in the amount of vitamin C your body needs when it's healthy and feeling well, as opposed to when it's actively fighting off some sort of an infection. So vitamin C is the #1 recommendation right now for improving your immune system. The second one that I put very high on the list is NAC. And this is short for N-acetylcysteine. This is a amino acid derivative that actually thins mucus and can thin mucus that is trapped in the bronchioles. So in clinical practice, we often recommend it for thinning mucus to prevent chronic sinus infections. And right now they're starting to use it in nebulizers to thin mucus that gets trapped in the bronchioles. Overall, it's an excellent strengthening agent for the bronchioles as well. But probably more important than anything is NAC's contribution to your antioxidant status. And all of the nutrients that I'm talking about today are some form of antioxidant. And that is an excellent way to protect your cell walls. So if we get time at the end, I will explain how antioxidants work, but I just want to go through these top recommendations, okay? What's not on the list, and I later was reminded of by a comment from somebody who was signing up for the seminar, is the importance of zinc. I can't believe I forgot that. So zinc generally is an important wound healing agent in the body and an enzyme, and specifically when it comes to actually treating this virus, it helps to shuttle medication into the cells. So it seems that the combination of hydroxychloroquinolone and erythromycin and a little bit of zinc and a lot of vitamin C, although in China they were using just vitamin C to treat the virus. But, you know, we use all the tools available to us when there's a crisis. But even, obviously, our goal is to talk about how to prevent any kind of crisis, and zinc is right up there. One of the interesting things about zinc is that it does control our ability to taste and smell. And with aging, with the decrease of total food intake, because the elderly often lose their appetite, you know, they're sedentary, they end up eating a lot of toast and cereal, right, and which doesn't have much nutritional value. So their zinc levels are depleted, which then further affects their appetite, which further depletes their zinc, and they end up often deficient in this super important immune supporting mineral. In fact, if you all just take a second to look at your fingernails, if you have any white spots on your fingernails, you have a pretty significant zinc deficiency. So I suggest a good 50 milligrams per day of zinc. Okay, so moving right along, the next thing I'd like to talk about is the botanicals that are available to us for many different purposes. So, you know, I'm just going to say this one complaint. I'm appalled that the media has not provided any kind of positive information about how we can get strong in the face of this virus or any virus. There is a cornucopia of virus busting, immune boosting botanicals out there that are not just, you know, have a long track record of anecdotal evidence, but there's plenty of traditional double-blind, peer-reviewed studies that have been published in reputable journals. And the amazing thing about the botanical world is that most every single plant that we use in herbal medicine has many effects. They're called multifactorial. So they have many different mechanisms of action. Many of these plants, and in fact, all the ones we're talking about in this next section being antiviral, oregano, olive leaf, and garlic are the top three that I like to use because they're easy to access, they're inexpensive, and you can use them partly in food form and partly in as a supplement. But they are not only antiviral, but they are antibacterial, in some cases antiparasitic, antifungal. They are strongly antioxidant. They have strong antioxidant power. And oftentimes they will also help prevent autoimmunity. So, wow, I mean, why wouldn't we be thinking about taking one of these botanicals on a regular basis? Then there are the immune supporting botanicals. And the ones that I like to mention most often are echinacea, astragalus, elderberry. You'll see that list in front of you. The reason why I get excited about echinacea is because it has all those actions, as I said before: antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and it actually prevents viruses from replicating by preventing their next generation from hatching, for lack of a better word. And also it helps to increase our white blood cell count. So those are our macrophages that help with killing off these pathogens of any kind, really. Astragalus has a long history used for colds and asthma. It is a vasodilator, meaning it helps to increase the circumference of bronchioles and blood vessels, and sometimes has applications with blood pressure as well, high blood pressure as well. So that's another botanical to consider. And then elderberry is very popular right now. We like to use the gummies just because they're delicious and something a little different, but they come in many forms. The active flavonoids and trace minerals are found in the ripe fruit. And the way that elderberry works is that it's an immune modulator. So it actually prevents the replication of viruses by binding to them and preventing them from entering the host. So I would recommend you consider choosing one of these formulas individually or something that's a combination. You know, whatever appeals to you. You sort of have to go by what makes sense. Melatonin. So there's some very interesting research about the correlation between melatonin levels and the morbidity rates associated with this virus. And it seems that the protective effect that children and young people have against even contracting the virus or having a serious case of it is melatonin. We deplete our melatonin levels as we age. And so taking melatonin, especially if you're over 55, is probably a good idea and easy enough to do. You simply take one at bedtime. You can take even the smallest dose, which would be 1 milligram, or you can take higher doses, especially if you're having trouble with sleep. And of course, sleep is such an important aspect of having healthy immunity. This has, you know, two different very important aspects. And keep in mind that when we use our devices, the blue light that they emit does deplete our melatonin. So that's why I chose melatonin as one of my top recommendations. And then the final nutritional recommendation is quercetin. So quercetin is another bioflavonoid. It's an aspect or a derivative of vitamin C found in the white rind of citrus fruits, so don't throw that away. Quercetin is uniquely suited to fending off this particular virus because remember, this is called the coronavirus, right? And that means, corona means crown. So it has these prong-shaped structures that are used to glob onto our cell walls. And what the quercetin does is it prevents and disrupts the docking mechanism of those prongs. So not only is it particularly helpful in this case, but generally it's a very powerful antioxidant, like everything else that I talked about today, and it's an antihistamine. So we use quercetin a lot in our practice for people who have problems with allergies and asthma. Okay, so lifestyle changes. You may know that being in a state of inflammation is a huge risk factor for any kind of an infection. The reason for this is that the inflammation increases the total load on our bodies, and certain kinds of inflammation are worse than others. For example, the inflammation that's associated with diabetes and prediabetes is especially insidious because of the increased blood sugar that's often associated with those conditions. And of course, sugar is a food for any kind of pathogen. So encouraging you to also reduce the sugar in your diet is definitely going to be helpful. And if you are wavering in the kind of gray area of becoming a diabetic, if you have insulin resistance or prediabetes or even heart disease, then you want to definitely be paying attention to the things you can do to back away from becoming a full-blown diabetic. And that is a completely nutritional based process, a combination of using food and supplements that help you with resensitizing your cell walls to insulin and being able to bring those blood sugars down. Exercise, I'm talking about every single day, not just when the weather's nice. So, you know, my father used to say, you're not made of sugar, meaning you're not going to dissolve if you go out and walk in the rain. So get yourself a good raincoat, some rain pants, and go out, even if it's cold, if it's windy, if it's raining. Being outside in fresh air and getting the exercise are especially important now when many people are not getting to the gym because they're closed. Sleep, try to get your 7 to 9 hours of solid, sound sleep. Please do not sacrifice this. There's nothing that you can be doing in the way of work or catching up with things to do for other people that is as important as you getting good sleep. Guard your mind and spirit. This is one of my, another one of my top recommendations, because what you put into your mind, what you allow into your mind, and then what you put in your body in the way of food and chemicals, drugs often, this is what we're made of. So if you are constantly watching the news, keeping track of, you know, death rates, of new infections, of, you know, this recommendation that may not be based on research or that theory, you're just going to make yourself dizzy with negative information. And that takes a toll on the immune system. You know, when you finish watching something or listening to something or talking with someone and you feel tired afterwards, that's a pretty good indication that that was not a beneficial interaction. And then finally, I'd like to show you the Thymus tap. And I guess for this, we need to, am I back?
You're back.
Okay, I'm back. All right. So the Thymus tap is a very simple way of stimulating the thymus gland, which is one of our key immune system actors. And you simply, this is something you can do every single day. You can just make a fist and then gently thump your breastbone. Okay, do you see where I'm doing that? And then what I like to do is also stimulate around these points, and I just go across my chest like this in a clockwise motion as you look down at your hand, at your fist. So this will stimulate the thymus gland. It will start moving the lymph more actively. And many times I find it relaxing, especially if I'm upset about something. So give that a try, include it in your routine. There are lots of different ways to do the thymus tap. That's just the way that I do it, but it's something you can research some more. So let's see. Do we have a moment to talk about antioxidants and how they work?
Sure.
Okay, so this is key because everything we've talked about so far today has been an antioxidant. And I'm going to ask Annie to put up the antioxidant-rich foods and supplements that I just made a quick and dirty list. There's, basically any fruit or vegetable, especially the deeply saturated colors, are going to be rich in antioxidants. And I just want to give you a little analogy of how antioxidants work. So, first of all, antioxidants prevent us from oxidative stress. And believe it or not, oxidative stress comes from oxygen, which of course we need to breathe. It's a critical part of staying alive. But like everything else, there's a cost associated with it. So for example, if you were to cut an apple in half and put it on your kitchen counter, think about what happens to it. It turns brown, right? Because the cut surface is exposed to oxygen, and that oxygen causes changes in the apple surface. It causes oxidative damage. Now, if you were to scrape your fingernail across that apple, you know what you would find, right? It's mushy. And that signifies that those cells, those top layers, the top cell layers of the apple have broken down because they've been damaged by the effects of oxygen. Well, that's what happens to our cells when we are exposed to oxygen. So we have to protect our cells from oxygen with all these different kinds of antioxidant nutrients, just like when you put lemon juice on your apple or you sprinkle some ascorbic acid on it, and voila, it doesn't turn brown. It stays nice and crisp. So that's what the antioxidants do for our cells. They help to keep our cell walls strong, impenetrable, and nice and crisp. The oxidative damage caused by exposure to oxygen is one of the things that often makes marathon runners fall ill towards the end of their training, because they have processed so much oxygen through their bodies without enough antioxidant support that it breaks down the cells. So I think that's it for the formal presentation, because I want to leave plenty of time for questions. And if you would please write in the chat, we'll get the questions started. And I really hope that this little talk has inspired you to select some things that you're not already doing to help you have a strong immune system, not just for now, but forever.
Okay, Monica, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. So we're going to go with some questions.
Yay.
Lisa asked, you didn't mention how much NAC a day and what kind of dosing. Is it once a day, twice a day?
Well, again, in the spirit of covering your cells all 24 hours of the day, I would go with 2 doses, breakfast and dinner, as equidistant as possible, like maybe 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And I would say between 700 and 1,000 milligrams per dose would be a good amount for an adult. And you can give NAC to your children as well in much smaller amounts, depending on their size.
Great. Gosh, the questions are flooding in, so hang on one second.
Okay.
How many times should the thymus tap be done?
Oh, okay, right. I would do it 7 times.
Great. How much vitamin C and D per day are you recommending right now for children? My daughter is 4. And how much vitamin D for adults? That's from
Okay.
Casey.
So 800 international units a day is a really good amount for children over the age of 4. So she would be in that range. And I would give her 500 to 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day in divided doses, unless they cause her to have loose stool, in which cut back on it. But that's the way you can determine whether you're giving too much, is if they get the diarrhea.
Is every vitamin C supplement the same?
No, they are not. However, get the kind of whatever vitamin C you can afford, as long as you're taking it regularly. Now, for some people, straight out ascorbic acid is very irritating for the stomach lining. So you can use sodium ascorbate, which is less irritating. You can use a buffered vitamin C. I really like to use powdered vitamin C because you can get the bigger doses with that, and you can get a buffered vitamin C, and there are no fillers in the capsules or the tablets, because sometimes, especially when you're taking higher doses of something, then those fillers are the problem, not actually what you're taking the supplement for.
Great. Is there antioxidant help in adding lemon or lime to our water?
Yes, sure, absolutely.
And can you just touch on an alkaline diet as it relates to inflammation?
Well, the standard American diet tends to be as acid forming, but I would say before you embark on doing an alkaline diet, check your pH, and you can get pH strips. We have the right range in our office. It's a narrower range. And you check your first morning pH via urine and saliva. And after a week's worth of data, take the average. And if you truly are overly acidic, then yes, engage in the alkaline diet. You can email me, whoever sent that question, I think maybe Darla, and I will send you the instructions for how to check your pH, and also a chart that shows the pH of foods from lowest alkaline to highest acid.
Great. Can you talk a little bit more about NAC? What is it exactly?
It is a derivative of an amino acid, cysteine, and it's been used for many decades in hospital settings. That's actually the first thing they give people who come in with Tylenol poisoning or mushroom toxicity, because it's such a effective nutrient to protect the liver as well as the lungs. So NAC has a long track record. It's very, very safe, and it's not a drug, but in higher doses it can be used as one.
Great. Moving on to herbs, the immune supporting herbs that you mentioned.
Yes.
Joella wants to know, do you take these only when you're sick, or are they also preventative?
Yeah. They're also preventative. In fact, that's when to take them, really, because that's when you can take a relatively small dose and stay on top of the game. You don't want to get overwhelmed by some negative effects on your immune system. So one consideration is that you kind of mix them up a little bit. Like I sometimes I'll take echinacea, and then the next round I'll do some mushrooms, which we didn't even talk about, or some astragalus. So just variety, I think, is always a good idea.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about resveratrol?
Another very powerful antioxidant that we get from grape skin, and that's a very deeply saturated purple color, right? So good antioxidant.
Great.
Yeah, just
and on the list of adaptogens also, right, to help with stress. in that
Oh,
way.
yes. We didn't even talk very much about stress, and I apologize for that because, yeah, when you're under stress, all of your body systems are under greater burden. And so, even we know that there's a very direct correlation between cortisol levels and secretory IgA, which is one of the biggest immune actors in the lining of our whole intestinal tract. And gut bacteria also have a huge effect not only on immunity, but are also affected by stress. So adaptogenic herbs, which I did not list here, would be like rhodiola rosa and ginseng. Funny thing, astragalus also has an effect as a adaptogenic herb. So there's that multifactorial aspect that I mentioned earlier, which is why, nature just provides us with everything we need. We just need to use them.
Great. So Wendy asks, which vitamin D type do you recommend, D2 or D3?
Well, D2 comes from plant sources and D3 comes from animal sources. D3 is the one that most supplements use, unless you are a strict vegan. I would go for D3.
Okay, great. And how much vitamin D is safe to take per day if your vitamin D level is low? Because someone else also mentioned that their doctor had cautioned them about too much vitamin D.
Right. Okay. One of my favorite topics. So the research says that if you need to go up 50 nanograms per milliliter, okay, in other words, if you have a vitamin D level of, let's say, 25, then you can safely go up to 75. You need to take 10,000 international units for 2 months and then maintain usually with 3,000 to 5,000 international units. Okay?
Per day, that is.
Per day.
Got it.
And when you're taking very high doses of vitamin D, as when you're taking those 10,000 units, it should be accompanied by vitamin K in order to prevent rigidity of the capillary walls.
And how do you get vitamin K? Or is it in the...
Well, you get a supplement that has it in there in the right proportion.
Like our vitamin D Supreme.
Yes, the D Supreme, the D Ultra, they are both properly balanced. It makes my hair stand on end when I hear people taking 50,000 units of a pharmaceutical vitamin D once a week. First of all, you don't get blasted with vitamin D like that in nature. Second of all, there's no vitamin K. So that is, to me, a setup for some kind of a major negative event in your life.
Are there specific antioxidants you'd recommend for seniors, especially to protect the skin?
The skin?
Yeah.
Well, definitely vitamin C, because it is a building block for collagen. Zinc, because it's the #1 repair agent in our bodies. And protein, because that's one of the biggest areas where the elderly fall down, is they don't eat enough protein. It's expensive, it's harder to fix, they don't have a taste for it. Sometimes their enzyme production is low, so they can't digest it. So something like a good protein powder or collagen powder, if it's skin specifically that you're concerned with, would be a good combination of nutrients.
Great. I just want to answer Heidi's question about, is this being recorded? The answer is yes. And later I will send a follow-up email with the, if you're here live today, I will send you an email with the link to the recording later today. So you'll have that to watch again.
Thank you, Annie, for doing such a great job putting this on.
So would a probiotic be helpful for the immune system?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, we have specific probiotics for the respiratory tract and the sinuses. We know that there are certain strains that support those flora specifically.
Do you want to name that product, or does it depend on?
Sure, it's called Ultraflora Immune. Imagine that. Ultraflora Immune. It is a Metagenics product.
And it's in the shop. Yeah.
It's in the shop, yes.
It's in the online store. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Michelle, you just put ashwagandha. So did you want to say anything about ashwagandha? I think of that as being in there with the adaptogens.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, you want me to say more about ashwagandha?
Sure.
Or
Yeah, Michelle's asking.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, no, I'm talking to you.
Okay. Yeah, ashwagandha. It's another adaptogen.
Sorry,
That's okay. No problem.
I'm eating. I gotta eat. I'm hungry.
I'm glad you're eating. So ashwagandha is another one of those solid adaptogens, very safe for long-term use and really helpful for just bringing cortisol levels down, especially if they're high. It's one of those ones we use for high cortisol.
Great.
In particular.
Okay, this is a specific question about the product Designs for Health Immunoberry Liquid. Lisa is asking about that. She's purchased that from our online store, and it says on the bottle that 1 dropperful, 35 drops, is a daily dose. Her question is, should I be taking more than that now? Should I break up the dose and take half the drops in the morning and half later? Or can I just take the dropper all at once? And
again,
and
if
finally,
you can split it.
Do I give my 10-year-old a quarter dose or a half dose?
How much does your 10-year-old weigh? Ballpark.
Lisa is still here. If you want to type in or unmute yourself and tell us. But do you want to? Can you just give us a general idea? So
Jackson's probably maybe 55 pounds. You know Jackson, Monica.
Oh, hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Right. So you would give him a third. So 10 drops a day would be his dose. You know, a general rule of thumb, most supplements are based on 150 pounds. So depending on whether you're giving it to a child, so for a 50-pound child, you would give them a third of the dose. For a 200-pound adult, you would give them 1 and like a third of the dose. So you can take the dosages up and down. That's a good general rule of thumb.
Great.
And yeah, again, like I said before, the more you split up the doses, the better.
Thank you.
Twice a day. You're welcome. At our house, my husband loves that product, and we call it dirt because it tastes so earthy.
Jackson actually really likes the taste of it because it actually it's called I think it's called, isn't it Immuberry or something? It actually tastes like berry.
Immunoberry. Yeah. Well, that's great.
He loves it.
When your child likes something like that, you know that that's a good fit for them, a good formula. So that's a positive thing.
Great. Carol is asking, what did you say previously would help with high blood pressure? Something that had an effect on high blood pressure.
That was, I believe it was astragalus. And it can have an effect on blood pressure, a positive effect.
Great. We have just a few more minutes, and I'm just going to go to some questions that we got in advance.
Okay, good.
What if I'm on medication? Should I worry about anything that you've mentioned?
It depends on what kind of medication. So
perhaps an appointment would really to talk about it individually.
You know, we're offering discounted immune appointments, which are half-hour appointments for $45, just exactly to deal with that kind of a topic.
Okay, great, excellent. That's through the end of May. We're offering that.
Yes, that's right.
If you just wanted to add one food to your diet that was going to be a great antioxidant food, what would it be? Probably the one you would eat every day.
Blueberries, I would say.
Blueberries. I was going to say the same thing.
They're easy.
Melatonin gives me wild dreams. Is there a way to take it so it doesn't do that?
Well, the only way to adjust for that is to decrease the dose. Okay. So even even if you have to go to 0.5 milligram, it's still going to be beneficial for building melatonin in your brain. And most people can tolerate that little.
Great. Why don't we get enough of the vitamins you mentioned from food?
Oh boy, that's a whole webinar on its own. Well, it has to do with the depleted soils and the way that we, mass produce our food and harvest it too early before it has a chance to ripen and develop a lot of the nutrients for which we eat those foods. It has to do with how fragile nutrients are. For example, when you cut an orange in half, within 20 minutes, it loses about 60% of its vitamin C.
Wow.
As compared to when you take a sustained release, let's say a vitamin C tablet, if the sustained release products are very good, that helps you to keep that, it's the equivalent of eating, I haven't thought about this in a while, I'm going to say like 5 or 6 oranges over the course of 6 or 7 hours. So that's where the potency is such a difference. There's such a difference in potency.
Yes. Another question came in from Jane.
Yes.
Is astragalus a problem if you have low blood pressure?
No, herbs don't work like that. It's not like they take you up or they take you down. They're adapted, they have an adaptogenic effect, astragalus in particular. So they help to keep you sort of in a normal range.
Great. Monica, I think it might be helpful for people if we went back to the list of recommended supplements and you just went down the list and talked a little bit about dosages. Would that be okay?
Okay, sure. Yes.
Let me just go back to sharing the screen so people can follow along.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going back to the screen on top protective supplements.
All right.
And if you just want to just run down the list in the few minutes that we have left to talk about dosages, I think that might be helpful to people. We could make some notes on that.
Great.
To have all the information in one place.
Yes. So the recommendation for vitamin D, like I said, is 2,000 or 3,000 to 5,000 international units a day. If you have been tested and your vitamin D levels are above 30, that will maintain most people very nicely. Really, it'd probably be a good idea if you've never had yourself tested to get a vitamin D level on yourself. And if it's less than 30, then you would take 10,000 international units a day for 2 months and then drop it down to 3,000 to 5,000 international units for maintenance. I find that most people, if they test low once, it's a pretty good indicator that you're not able to store it, and you should be taking vitamin D indefinitely because you're not able to get it from the environment and hold on to it.
And again, we do have that test kit in our online store at bewelassociates.com. It's a very inexpensive test, and you just do that at home.
Correct, yes.
Great.
Vitamin C, I've been recommending 2,000 milligrams a day. I just listened to a webinar today that is suggesting 3,000 milligrams a day for prevention. It's kind of up to you, but whatever you do, try to split it up in 2 or 3 doses so that it covers you throughout the day. Because remember, your body's still functioning overnight, even though you're not eating and taking supplements. NAC, I think we said like 700 to 1,000 milligrams twice a day, right?
Yes. Monica, when it comes to the botanicals, are you suggesting that people take, for example, one of the antibacterial, one of the immune support, one of the anti-inflammatory? Like, how do people think about this? I know you did say that you want people to maybe change it up and take you know, one
Yes.
thing for a
So
while and the other.
I think it's a really good idea right now to be taking something like olive leaf or oregano or garlic at least once a day. And I usually like to take those during the day when, you know, I might be in contact with something that needs to be contained or knocked out. And then I always take a probiotic at night because these are also antibacterial agents, which will affect your good bacteria in your gut.
Great.
So I would do that. Yes, one of those, choose one and take it. And this is another thing you can rotate. You know, take one bottle of olive, then follow it up with one bottle of oregano, then do a round of garlic and then back around. I would choose something to help you, some kind of botanical to help boost immunity. And that would be any from the list at the bottom. Now, many of these also have an anti-inflammatory effect. And frankly, by taking increased amounts of vitamin C, you are also decreasing inflammation. So that's what's so great about the herbal world. It's helping you with oxidative stress. It's helping you with inflammation, and depending on whether it also has anti-pathogenic effects, it's helping you with that as well. So me personally, I've always taken vitamin D and vitamin C. I've just increased my vitamin C. I'm a big fan of NAC for everybody. I do take melatonin at night, and that's new, and I'm doing it just because I'm of a certain age, and there's such good data that supports the use of melatonin.
So Monica, if you're taking these other things that you're mentioning that are anti-inflammatory, do you then also maybe need to add the curcumin or grapeseed extract?
No, you don't necessarily need to.
Okay.
You know, if you know you have inflammation, let's say you know that you're diabetic, or you have had your C-reactive protein measured and it's high, or you have arthritis or an autoimmune condition, then I think it would be smart to take one of these botanicals.
Okay, great.
In addition. So the quercetin, I like to use 1 to 2,000 milligrams of quercetin. And I have found a really great product that we use a lot of in our office. It's 2,000 milligrams of quercetin and 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C in 1 teaspoon of powder. So it's really easy to administer to children, for example, or you just stir it into whatever else you're eating or drinking, and you have your antihistamine, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory power.
And what is that product called, Monica?
It's called quercetin ascorbate.
Great. All right. I'm going to bring you back and just check the chat. How much melatonin for a 150-pound person? And you were saying before that is considered average in terms of supplements. So how much melatonin at night?
Well, a good beginning dose is 3 milligrams. You don't need much. Some people take much higher amounts, although I believe with melatonin, less is more. If you're having trouble with staying asleep, then there is a sustained release form of melatonin that's relatively new, and that can be very helpful.
Great.
But for the purposes of just boosting your melatonin levels for better immunity, you can just do 1 to 3 milligrams at night. And just take it, right before bed.
Great. Good. Well, we need to finish up. So any last thoughts, Monica, before we say goodbye?
Well, it is my hope that because of this pandemic, people's eyes are being opened to the benefit and the importance of having an important immune system, and that this will actually make us healthier as a nation. That is my hope, that there's the silver lining, and this is a wake-up call so that we can all get stronger, because this is not the last time we're going to see some sort of a bug that we have to fight off.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us, Monica. So many people have been writing into the chat that this was extremely helpful.
Oh, good.
And
I'm
thanks,
glad.
thanks. Yes, so many people. Thank you all, Lisa,
Thank you for-
Casey, Wendy. Yes.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time this morning, and share this video with your friends so that they have some practical tools, because people get so confused by all the stuff they read on the internet, and this group of nutrients that I've identified today really are backed by solid research.
Wonderful.
So go out there and pick a couple and do it and be healthy.
Great.